postmasters early in my career, is just that people want you to be successful. Like everyone is rooting for you when you're speaking.
Nice.
And the other thing is take a deep breath before you speak. I know that that's something that always like puts you in a good place. You're allowed to slow down.
Right.
Welcome, everyone. We're just going to give a few more minutes for people to filter in. Okay, everyone, we'll give it one more minute to let a few more people come in. Okay, let's get started. So welcome everyone to our NAI Global Women's History Month panel. We are going to focus today on trends in secondary and tertiary markets and hear from some of the amazing women that are in leadership across NAI. By way of introduction, my name is Crystal. I have a strategic consulting company called Growth Mindset, where I help companies in growth mode on their strategy and on their own leadership development. I have a history in commercial real estate. I came up in this industry and have been working with NAI in particular for the last 2 years on an amazing project, which is growing their Global Women's Alliance. And these 3 women that are here with me today are part of that alliance and part of bringing women together, as we have been for the last 2 years, actually. And one of the important things that I thought I'd point out about NAI is that it is an amazingly inclusive company. And I think part of that could be that 50% of the people on the leadership team are women. And so it's an honor to work with those women and the women throughout the alliance. Now I'm going to turn it over to Beth Barnes, Tina LaMonica, and Amber Brandhagen to give a bit of an intro about themselves, and then we'll dive into the topic. Tina, you want to start us off?
Sure. My name is Tina LaMonica. I'm a broker and executive vice president with NAI Capital Commercial in their Pasadena, California office. I specialize in office leasing. I have over 21 years experience as an office specialist, 13 years as a broker, and 8 years as a corporate real estate professional handling the leasing for 75 office buildings in Southern California for GE Capital. I'm in the Pasadena market, which is about 20 minutes from downtown Los Angeles. It's a tertiary market, and I have been in this market for 13 years.
Great. Beth, you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Elizabeth Barnes. I am the COO of NAI Plotkin. NAI Plotkin is based in Springfield, Massachusetts, which is a tertiary market. The owner of the company is Evan Plotkin, and we're a third generation family business. We're actually celebrating our 60th anniversary in business this year. So we're quite proud of that fact. I personally have been with the firm. I'm about to celebrate my 22-year anniversary. And in our market, we don't specialize in anything. We do property management, brokerage, and construction management, and we're one of the leading firms in our market. We service Western Massachusetts and Northern Connecticut for property management, and we do facilities management nationwide for retailers like Staples and Best Buy.
Love it.
And I almost forgot to mention, additionally, I am the chair of the NAI Global Property Management Council, and everyone on this panel knows that that's an organization of 55 NAI firms that do property management services. And we also meet regularly to discuss best practices and network and collaborate with each other. So that's a great organization as well.
Awesome. Amber?
So my name is Amber Brandhagen. I am co-principal and chief operating officer of NAI Global Wireless. We are a premier brokerage firm for all things wireless and real estate across the nation. Our headquarters are in Southern California, and I work remotely in Reno, Nevada. Our platform launched in 2008, and since 2021, we have closed over 25 million in transactions in our wireless sector. And we are also launching a property management division in Southern California as well.
Amazing. I love the variety of specialties and the years that these women have put in, and some big numbers as well. Let's talk a little bit about how this is going to work. So I'm going to ask a question. We'll go through the responses, but I love to welcome audience participation as much as possible. You have a Q&A chat that you could all use. Please feel free to message us through that, and we'll answer either live or through the chat. I see Elka, you put a message in here. Looking forward to having you part of this as well. A longtime friend of NAI and a partner to many of the offices. So welcome, welcome. Let's dive in. So let's talk a little bit about the major trends that the three of you are seeing in your specialty areas, in your markets. How are things playing out right now, and how do they relate to sort of the macro trends that are going around the country today?
Sure. If you want me to kick that off, speaking from a property management specialty focus area, I would say a couple major trends going on right now. Number one, I would say, is ESG. There's a big focus on ESG reporting requirements, and investors are looking at this data to make sound decisions and make sure that the companies and organizations that they do business with are aligned with their values, and there are tax implications to that as well. So I think one of the biggest things that property managers can be doing right now is developing their ESG reporting compliance plans, digging into that area. And the second thing that I think on the property management side of things that we're all focusing on is tenant retention in a post-COVID world, especially in the office market, with the trends that we are seeing in terms of there's an organization, Castle Systems, that does a back to work barometer. They are looking at 10 major metro areas in the country and actually analyzing the data on occupancy of office tenants. And right now that's trending at about 50% occupancy. I think we're seeing more folks in the office on Tuesdays than we're seeing on Fridays. What are we as property managers doing to help the businesses who want their folks to come back to the office? What are we doing to attract those tenants, back into the world?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm going to ask some more questions later about sort of the difference between those major markets that you're talking about and maybe some of these secondary, tertiary markets, if there is a difference. But anyone else, please jump in. What are the major trends you're seeing, and how does it compare to the macro trends?
Well, I can speak to office leasing in Pasadena and the greater Los Angeles market. We've been hit hard with increasing vacancies since the pandemic. And from my contacts through the network, NAI network, it seems to be across the country that this is playing out. Tenants have been downsizing due to the hybrid work schedule, and we don't expect that to we expect that to continue through the coming months and years. I believe that this hybrid model will be here to stay, and it'll be a permanent way of doing business. And the occupancy level, as Elizabeth mentioned, is about 50% in our market as well. And what we're also seeing a trend is many tenants and occupiers are fleeing from the metro areas into the suburban secondary markets. We've been seeing that as well. We have to remember that the pandemic was 3 years ago, and many people still have a couple years or more left on their leases. And this will continue to impact occupancy in these office buildings. So our market right now is 21% on the vacancy rate. Another trend we're seeing is broker bonuses, tenant concessions in our market. And, when you see that, owners are reaching for deals. So that's pretty much what we've been seeing. The buildings that are getting the deals, and Elizabeth can speak to this, are the ones that are doing, remodeling, adding amenities, and this will, go to the efforts of trying to get employees back and tenants back in the building.
For sure.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting from both perspectives of the tenants and the owners and how creative both are trying to be, right? As a consultant, I'm working with a lot of the business owners, and they're trying to be creative to think about how to get people back to the office. The owners are trying to be creative of how to get people into the buildings. And I just feel like that idea of creativity is just really flooding the market right now of what can we do? What are some of the things we can do? And I want to turn it over to Amber, someone who I know has so much creativity in what you do and sort of what you specialize in. Tell us a little bit about the trends that you're seeing.
Yeah, there are several trends occurring in the wireless world right now, and I'd like to touch on a few of them. There's small cell development will be more robust in the coming years, even though it's not profitable for the landlord or the client or the carrier, but it's a necessity to continue the connectivity, in the area.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that is for those of us on the call who are not as familiar? Tell us what that is.
So small cells, they're nodes that connect to, say, a street pole, sides of buildings, and you see it more in city capacities. When you're walking down the street, you'll see, odd little structures here. Those are small nodes or small cells.
And so owners are thinking about the use of these. Tell me about from which end we're
so carriers are looking to deploy so that they can connect, if it's T-Mobile in the area and they have a dead spot, you're walking down the street on your cell phone, you don't want to drop calls or anything. So they're deploying these small cells to continue the connectivity.
Great. Yeah. So how is that trend, impacting, any of the macro or sort of the overall? I know you work all across the country.
Right. So it's more, I think they're going more so after the cities right now, but in general and more macro, we're hearing more about 5G, right? The buzzword right now is 5G, but we will be seeing 6G rollout in next year. It's already coming. It's already talked about. And the sites that are not converted to 5G right now will be approached to upgrade to 6G next. So if you have 5G right now, you're not being approached for 6G anytime soon. It's going to be the later systems that will be approached for 6G first. And then the last one is the in-building Wi-Fi systems and distributed antenna systems. We really believe that it's going to be the fourth utility and be a benefit for the tenant experience. And we'll be hosting a webinar next week discussing this topic because it's really huge. It's a big topic to really discuss. And if it's okay, I would love to just drop that registration link in the chat so that anybody can join next week, so that any questions that come up, we can discuss that in more detail.
Yeah, I'm sure people would want to learn more about that. And that sort of adds up with just getting more creative. Is this something that you're saying is for the benefit of the tenants? Is it something that owners are thinking about as they're sort of promoting their space in their building?
Yeah, I think landlords really need to start considering that landlords have always required their tenants be responsible for their own telecom and wireless infrastructure for individual office suites. I think landlords should really consider installing their own in-building Wi-Fi system and charging tenants for the use of Wi-Fi as a fourth utility. It enhances the tenant experience and it reduces the number of vendors accessing and cabling through the building. So there's a benefit on both ends.
Interesting. Yeah. So I want to keep diving into this idea of owners' creativity versus tenant creativity. Beth, I know we talked a little bit about what are people doing to approach this, right? If there's 50% vacancy in a lot of these markets, what are owners doing? What are they thinking?
Right. So
success.
I think what we have to do is figure out how to keep what worked best in the office space, continuing and incorporating what makes working from home so desirable, right? And I think the best things you can do is offer the best amenities to your tenant. I think the office buildings that are upgraded, newer office buildings where basically you have to engage the arts and entertainment and to make these spaces more social, right? Like if you're, why do we like to go out to eat? I was having this conversation with Evan Plotkin yesterday. We can all eat at home, but often we like to go out to a restaurant because we're social beings. And when you walk into that restaurant, it's the experience. If the host knows you by name and says, welcome, I think people need that. I think we've been missing that during COVID, right? So if you can make your office spaces and your business districts in general have amenities like dining, conference spaces, meeting spaces, on-site fitness centers, retail, and outdoor space. And not just an outdoor space to check a box that, oh yeah, our building has outdoor space, and actually outdoor space that people want to use and are using in a social setting. Something that helps people want to be in the office and get re-engaged with the world. I think those are critical, tenant lounges, eco-friendly charging stations. The more amenities you can bring to the building, the more people will want to be there.
It's so interesting too, because of just the benefit for also the business owners who want people in the office to do that idea of social sharing, Beth, that you mentioned. We know we'll never go back. And it seems like that is now known. Like, I think we were trying to wait until we came out of the pandemic to decide, will we go back? Will it go back? And I think it's now decided it's not going to go back. No. We have to deal with flexible work being here to stay. And so what does that mean for everyone, right? The business owners, the workers who are coming in, and this idea of like offering many amenities. And I know things like a gym and being able to be flexible to go multiple places, just like we can do in our own homes, is very helpful. Tina, I know you talked a lot about what's happening with some of the buildings in your market as well. Tell us about how people are adapting, how owners and tenants are adapting, and brokers too, because I know we also talked about brokers getting creative about how they do deals in this environment.
Well, I think what the office brokers, during the pandemic, during the last 3 years, have probably expanded their practice, and we're doing some other specialties just to pay the bills, keep the lights on. So I think that there were a lot that were dabbling into industrial retail so that they can stay employed as a broker. So I think a lot of people were doing that because it was quiet for most of 2020. And, it is coming back very slowly. But like I said, there will be more downsizing because we still have leases that are expiring, the next coming months and years. So in terms of buildings here that have done well, they are buildings that have the amenities that Elizabeth is mentioning. The project that I'm in has a huge outdoor area. They spent millions of dollars. Bocce ball area. They have all kinds of things to try to appeal to the employees. We have conferencing centers, all free. They don't have a gym, but they just signed a lease for a restaurant. So they're doing their best to try to get people back to the office.
Yeah, we have a question too from the audience of what are some of the most creative amenities you've seen? I think that bocce ball court.
The bocce ball, yeah, we actually had a party. Our office had a party out there in the outdoor area and we had fun playing bocce ball. So, I mean, it's great. I mean, with brokers, we're coming into the office and, but I think it's really specific to the industry. A lot of law firms are not coming back into the office. There are a lot of engineering firms that are having their employees come in because that's a little different. You're looking at plans, you need to collaborate. So I think it is specific to the industry. But I think that landlords are smart to be remodeling and modernizing your buildings to keep the tenants they have, and also to try to attract new tenants.
We've done, and we have done this prior to the pandemic in our market. There's a local brewery called White Lion, and they have White Lion Wednesdays where they travel to several different office buildings every Wednesday. And it's kind of like a happy hour that starts at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it just keeps people downtown a little bit longer. And in our own building that I'm sitting in right now, we just recently finished, it's not just a conference center, but it's also an art gallery that we incorporated into this conference space. So it's interesting. It's not a bland conference center space. And we, for years, have been activating our office plaza and trying to engage, in tenant appreciation kind of events. And it just makes coming to the office, almost a networking event, just being in the building. And I think people like that. And I think the more we can do events like that, the more we'll see people trickling back into the office.
Yeah. So that's sort of state of affairs of what's happening right now. Let's look forward. Where do you see commercial real estate as a whole, office property management, cell towers, whatever your specialty is? Where are we going in the next 5 years? 5 years from today, what's going to be happening that's different?
Well, I think like Tina said, we're a little bit nervous about what's going to happen with the office market because we've already been seeing tenants downsizing space and some people even, just needing the WeWork space. And we haven't seen the end of it. If those folks were in 5-year leases, what happens? And not just to the office market, but then what happens to the retail around these office buildings when there's less people coming to work every day? I think it's definitely something that everyone in commercial real estate is watching, and I think we just have to see where things go. In the meantime, like are we repurposing office buildings? Are we turning them into mixed use? It's very expensive to turn an older office building from office use into multifamily. There's a lot of challenges with doing that. So what are the owner's options?
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about that actually, because I have a client who has a couple of office buildings. I'm on one of the listings, and it's local here, the greater Pasadena market. And he is repositioning the building and turning it into a medical office building. So we've only been marketing it as an office building. So now, because we're about a mile from the regional hospital here, he has that opportunity to turn it into medical, get a higher rate. We've got to deal with parking because parking is the requirement is more for medical, but That's what this particular owner's doing, and that's cheaper than turning it into multifamily. So I think that's a really good option for buildings that are close to medical. In this market, medical space is in high demand and there's not enough supply. So that's a good thing for the office buildings if they're able to pivot and go and do medical.
I mean, that makes total sense just based on, I think, day-to-day life too, right? I feel like it takes much longer to get a doctor's appointment now than it did pre-COVID. It feels like you said there's very high demand. And so maybe that's one of the things we'll see in the next 5 years is more of that medical office space. And maybe that's one of the routes for an owner to go. Amber, what about you? What do you see happening in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so I have two different points of view on this. So like I said, with the 5G, 6G will be, the next thing in the few years ahead, and the small cell development. But I wanted to put a different perspective on it from a brokerage side. Commercial real estate, it's mainly older generation, right? And they'll be aging out of the business in the coming years. Brokerage firms, I think, are going to need to really reconsider their fee structure as it relates to bringing in younger talent. So it's not necessarily commission-based. This may be an hourly or a fixed fee structure. I do know, and I've heard different NEI company firms, member firms, that have already implemented like a 1-year plan, and they eventually phase them out of the salary or an hourly position to commission only, but it helps keep the roof over their head while they learn the industry, and they're not just sink or swim per se.
I agree.
Perspective.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it needs to be done in very soon with the aging population of brokers.
Right.
100%. It's very difficult to get young people straight out of college that can then afford to work on a commission basis. I think we're seeing across the network, there are a lot of firms that are now offering a salary, and it's a benefit to our senior brokers to bring in a junior broker who's learning and being mentored alongside them. They have, a salary to survive on and pay their tuition bills. And the senior broker is getting the benefit of someone assisting him, and he's mentoring and learning, or he or she, they're learning the business. And over that 1-year period, the newer generation is able to get a taste of the kind of commissions they can receive, and it's helping companies work on their succession planning for their brokerage divisions.
I mean, it makes sense, right? The market itself is changing so much. The owners, the tenants, the employees, we've all had to shift. And so then the brokerage world seems like it is due for, I don't want to say an overhaul because it works so well. That's why it's such, an attractive career for people, but it's due for some change. And
Right.
I think my question to you all is like, how will the industry shift if we change the way that we're incentivizing brokers and we're incentivizing the service side of the industry? Because it's also going to be a whole new demographic coming in, right? It's more inclusive now. We have people from different backgrounds joining, when I think historically it was very much family-based or people who fell into commercial real estate. I've heard so many stories, I didn't know I'd get into this. I fell into it, and then it becomes addicting, right? Because it is such a magnetic industry. How will that change as we change fee structures and welcome more people into the industry?
I think it will be easier for individuals to get into the industry if they're starting off being mentored and getting a leg up. You don't have to be independently wealthy to decide to start a career in real estate nowadays. And I think we've all are adapting more of a collaborative coaching, mentoring kind of mindset now with the women that I work with in this office, and not just women, the entire team in general. I think, gone are the days where it was fake it till you make it. Everyone's so much more supportive in this environment, which is lovely. And to see everyone's being so inclusive.
Yeah, let's shift and talk a little bit about each of you are in these leadership positions. We'd love to hear about your path to leadership and, how you got there. And then, from there, maybe we could talk a little bit about what are you doing to empower women around you now that others are taking that journey. But let's just start with how each of you what was your path to leadership?
So I would like to begin on this one because it kind of plays off Beth. You don't have to have a real estate background or, come from a wealthy family. I was working in an Anytime Fitness in Southern California in 2014, and David Moore, my partner, saw something in me and asked if I would come work for him. And he mentored me, and I started as an administrative assistant. I had no prior real estate background. I came in as green as can be, and I dove in and I learned as much as possible. And through the years, I worked my way up to being 50-50 partner. And then we launched NEI Global Wireless in 21, where I became, co-owner and the chief operating officer. So I think it's just be motivated and, look for help if you have any questions, and, have a good mentor. And the mentor also, David's amazing. I just give so much kudos to David for willing to take me in and learn, show me the ropes per se.
For sure.
I think it's also about, sharing that story with others. Like you're saying, Amber, you can come from any place and come in here and enjoy just the wide open space that exists for commercial real estate. I know we've discussed this on another panel before, but there really is no ceiling in terms of how much you can earn in this kind of environment. And so welcoming people of different backgrounds and more women, it really is it will turn into a different type of industry. And if you're dedicated, and everyone knows this, you have to spend the time. This is not a career that you can just do half and half. You've got to spend the time. You've got to become an expert. And growth can be exponential for yourself and for your finances, basically. Beth and Tina, who wants to jump in on your path?
I can speak. My background before being a broker was in corporate real estate. For many years. I really never wanted a commission-only job, but GE Capital, my last employer, did a major layoff in 2010. And so I kind of had no choice but to go into brokerage because there were no corporate real estate jobs at the time. So, but it was a blessing in disguise because it turned out to be a better fit for me. Just the flexibility that I had and, independence that you have as a broker. And so within 5 years, I started making Capital Club for high producers here in our company. And I've made Capital Club 8 years in a row now. So I really excelled here. And I love what I do. And, I try to reach out to women as much as I can to try to introduce them into the business. And I'm on the mentoring committee here at NEI Capital, and I've had a couple of women referred to me to shadow me, and I've really enjoyed that. And they're not in the business, they're, thinking about going into the industry, and it's really exciting for me to show them what I do.
Definitely. Let's hear from Beth first, because I want to hear a little bit about also, like, what are the things that bring you the most passion about this path and choosing this career? Obviously, you're all loving it. You've been doing this for a long time and are still sort of like firing on all cylinders. Beth, tell us about your path.
Yeah, so definitely I would say property management is still not a career of choice. It's a career of chance. I started out my career at 24. I started working in an administrative capacity for, I think it's one of the oldest retailers in our country, the Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, known as A&P. I was working in their construction and real estate division of their Northeast division. And, they were looking at the marketplace, and they had decided if we weren't ranking number 1 or 2, the grocery store chains in the Northeast, that they were going to get out of our market. And so I took that leap, and I came over to a family-owned property management firm. It seemed like the next logical step for me. And I started off at the beginning. I was an administrative assistant learning all asset types. I worked on homeowner associations. Eventually, from our commercial property management business, we ended up meeting folks at Staples, and I've been doing facilities management since 2005 for retailers like Staples and Best Buy. And I've worked my way up through the firm that I am now the COO, and looking forward to a future, what the future brings here. But what I like to do in my office is kind of, for all the staff that work here, the same thing. I like to provide cross training and deepen their experience so that they've got their fingers in everything and they understand from the ground up how it works. And we're all working collaboratively together for the best of our clients and our company.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about what keeps the fire going. Obviously, there's so many cycles within commercial real estate, and those of us who have been in it for a while, we've been through a few cycles, some more than others. But what keeps the fire going? Today, you're in this, and like I said, firing at all cylinders. What is it that you're most passionate about today, given the challenges, given the good things? What are you most passionate about?
I think it comes down to helping others, right? That's what we do. I think we're people pleasers. I think we want to find solutions, and there's something very rewarding about that kind of career.
I agree.
Yeah, same here. Absolutely.
Reason why I do it. I love working with clients. I love helping clients and seeing them get a space that works for them. And that's very rewarding for me.
And on a personal level, we're constantly growing, right? In my market, it's not necessary to have your CPM designation to be able to manage properties here, but there's always something more to pursue. I'm on my CPM track, and that kind of helps to keep the fire burning. What's next? What can I accomplish next?
I agree. I think that's why I stayed in commercial real estate for most of my career. And I think it was that element of there's so much to learn. And I just remember being, obsessed with the amount of things that you could bring value to. So many different avenues, so many different product types, so many, whether you're in management, leadership, or if you're an admin, or if you're in marketing, or even if you're working with the sign vendors, like whatever you're doing. I just remember even our receptionist had so many things that she could put her hands on that it kept every day exciting. It's not like any other industry for that reason.
For sure. Never a dull moment. It's never the same thing. A new challenge every day.
Yeah, because there's different tenant needs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I like about it. It's never the same. Every day you get to work, there's something else going on. It's another problem you have to solve. So.
Definitely. Well, let's talk a little bit about how you plan to advance your own career and those around you in the next few years, because now you've come to this, a pretty senior level, all of you. How do you plan to advance your career?
Well, I'll speak first. Right now, I'm trying to get my SIOR designation, and I finally hit the production numbers that you need. So I'm pretty proud of that. So I'm going through the process of getting that, and it's well-respected organization of quality, ethical brokers, and I'd like to be part of that network. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Great.
Congratulations. That's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and chime in as well. So, we're going through a growth phase. So I'm working on building our team and expanding our property management division in California and Nevada. I'm looking to take property management courses, get my broker's license in California, and attend many conferences over the next few years to educate potential clients of our platform and network and build those connections. I'm really hoping that I can mentor a few ladies along the way as well that are looking to advance their career.
Yeah, I think what you do, Amber, is so interesting too, is because there is this element of you have to educate people about what this actually is, because many people don't know what it is. Tell me about that journey. how do you reach people? How do you say to someone, hey, this is, a whole thing that you're not even thinking about that's on your property, and that we can help you with? How do you do that?
Right. Well, NEI has been great. I mean, I would say 80% of our book is from referrals within the NEI network, because brokers, they're just not educated on the product type, right? So we take care of the client, and we educate the broker as well, but at the end of the day, we take care of the client. And for me, I've done a lot of marketing pushes to landlords that I know that have the existing infrastructure in place. But for me, it's just spreading the word and building those connections. I go to the crew here in Northern Nevada. I go to BNI meetings. I just go and I just spread the word as much as possible.
Great. Yeah. Beth, you want to tell us a little bit about your plans for your career over the next few years?
Sure. Yeah. And I think in terms of, I already mentioned that I'm pursuing my CPM designation. I'm working with our NAI Global Property Management Council. We really would like to have NAI recognized as, a competitor in the market, in the property management arena. We're all so committed. We have our local roots here, and we're all doing great work for our local clients, but how can we help to serve clients' need nationally? I think there's an area for growth there for sure. And I'm mentoring all my staff, take them on this journey with me.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a rite of passage that happens when you're growing your own career, and then one day it flips to now most of your time is spent building career paths for others and
Right.
pulling others up. And it sounds like, you're all in that space, Amber, growing a team, to focus on this like very specialty area. Beth has been doing that for so long, and Tina the same. Like, you're really now focused on building the community around you and what comes next, which is really interesting. There are a bunch of questions that are coming in, so I want to address some of those. Anything else that we want to talk about just in terms of career advancement before we jump to questions from the audience?
I think we got it covered. I'm ready for some questions.
Okay, great. So one of them I think we covered a bit, but let's answer it directly. Going back to the office related discussion, what are the amenities that are most in demand for tenants right now? What are they asking for?
Yeah, definitely dining, parking, access to transportation, conference and meeting space, retail, fitness centers, outdoor space. Roof deck is even nicer if you've got it. Tenant lounges and EV charging stations. I think those are the most common.
That's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Tina, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, just outdoor space and conferencing.
Yeah. Okay, somebody here said, Deanna mentioned daycare and how huge that has been. She said most landlords, though, want the government to subsidize that. What are your thoughts?
That is true. It is difficult to bring, I think, daycares into downtown office space, right? Because not a lot of, I guess it depends on the parking available, right? No one wants to take a child out of a car seat on a busy road. So in suburban areas, I think that might be easier to accomplish than it would be in downtown office markets.
And then I have a question here about in-building wireless, which I think is a question for Amber, but maybe we can all kind of talk about it too. Oh, there she is, she's back. So yeah, the question is, people talk about the security of in-building wireless or wired. Don't people want to have control of their systems and have greater security? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you'll still have access to your system. It's just the way that it's installed in the building, right? So you're not going to, as a landlord, you're not going to have 5 or 6 different systems in place. It's going to be hardwired already in the building. I can't really address to the point of security, but if you can join next Thursday, I will make sure it's a talking point and that question will get addressed from the experts that will be on the webinar.
Awesome.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you, Colleen, for the question. What about this idea of security? Is there anything different that you see going on in buildings since COVID, or with this lower, anything different at all, especially in secondary and tertiary markets?
Not that I've seen.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you mean in terms of cybersecurity or physical security?
Physical security, and I mean, cybersecurity is a different animal, sort of out of
Right.
our hands a bit, but yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen, I mean, we have buildings that are required to have 24/7 security. So that occurred all through COVID. The buildings aren't allowed to shut down. So yeah, no changes that I've experienced.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the audience? Please continue to put your questions into the Q&A. There's one more comment here just around ESG. I know Beth mentioned ESG earlier, and defining, what that is. Some people might not know what that is and how it's impacting commercial real estate. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, sure. So real investors in real estate are looking for to make sure that the people they're doing business with are aligned with their values in terms of environmental stewardship, right? Think of it as LEED buildings.
Yeah.
We've all went through the LEED building push. It's not just environmental now, we're also focusing on social and corporate governance. And so I think the industry is looking to find a way to make these things reportable, because there are going to be tax implications for investors eventually. So actually, I was reading a study where most commercial real estate organizations right now are just in the early stages of preparing for ESG reporting. And I think the industry is looking at making the reporting, kind of standardized, so that everyone, you're looking at apples to apples. Investors are able to compare on an apples to apples basis how buildings are performing when they're looking at investing in certain properties.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the arguments for ESG in general, is that it's really not templated in any way, and it's not really standardized. And so there's a lot of criticism of, well, ESG is more performative right now because we're not actually saying what it should be included, and companies are allowed to kind of come forward with what they want. If anybody's interested in learning more about this, there's actually a report that I just read on PitchBook, which is a website that's, more about the finances behind startups, but there's a report there you could download about the concerns and criticisms of ESG. And to me, I thought about commercial real estate. As I was reading it, because owners and people in this industry are going to question it up and down. And so just knowing what those questions are and how to sort of take a position on it is important, because it's coming. As Beth said, we're going to be talking about ESG for years to come. So better to sort of make sure you know what it is and take a stance, on what we're looking for there.
Right. I think folks, the majority of people are aware of it, and everyone's kind of just waiting for some industry guidance on what we need to do next to be prepared.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we have another question from Rafaela. Here, most of the companies are changing the layout to maximize meeting point back to office. Companies are changing layouts to maximize meeting points and rooms in order to attract people to office for meeting colleagues and clients. Is it the same there?
Yes, I would say the layouts are a lot different. They're more concerned on the cubicles, used to be so close together, making a little bit further apart. They're, bigger open areas. And we just moved our office, and that's what we did. We have very large open areas. And, it's because of COVID and that whole thing. So I think that the layouts are different. They're doing more meeting rooms and more hoteling offices. We have a couple here, so people can come in and out if they don't have an office or a cubicle.
Definitely. I know from my perspective of working with like the CEOs and the COOs, there's this idea of the on-site that is now popular. It used to be called the off-site. We're all going to leave the office and go somewhere and like be creative and do things. And now it's called an on-site because everyone's going to come into the office for a very particular reason and meet. And so having a place to have the on-sites, and sometimes it's a 4-hour on-site, sometimes it's a 2-day, but you need places where people can be together and intentionally work on things in these bigger groups. And I know that that's what the companies are looking for. So it makes sense that the offices are, changing layouts to meet that.
Yeah, a lot of meeting rooms, a lot more open space, collaborative space. That's what I've been seeing happening. But they are, in most companies that I've been working with, are downsizing. So they're not taking the same footprint. And because, we all know that, as we discussed, this hybrid work model is not a temporary thing. It is a permanent way of doing business.
Right. No other questions that I can see here. Does anyone else have any comments? Main takeaways just from our time together?
No, it's just always a pleasure to speak with you, Crystal. I really enjoy everything that we're doing with the Women's Alliance. I think it's beneficial to all of us. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you very much for organizing this.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. And hopefully you can check out those resources. I know Amber shared her webinar in there. And if you want to check out that pitch book report on ESG and any other questions, please feel free to email us, and have a great rest of your afternoon.
You
Thanks,
as well.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.